Welcome back to In Their Own Words. I'm Kim McCovis, your host, and I'm here with Jodi Clock. Jodi is the author of Navigating the Eldercare Journey Without Going Broke. Now, Jodi, we were talking about end-of-life decisions and financial planning. You know, I've been considering purchasing a will or figuring out the arrangements I need to do so for my own end-of-life planning. What are some of the steps that people should take in making that decision?
Oh, Kim, you just left yourself wide open for me.
Go ahead.
What were you thinking? Not that I really want to know how old are you, but how old are you? Do you have children? Are you married? Do you have a house? Do you have things? And you don't have a will? Shame on you. But you're in good company, and I'm picking on you. And ironically, if I just had a penny for every time I had someone say, I think I should probably get a will, don't you? Yeah, I think you should run screaming from the building to your attorney and make a will. Wills, I'm not an attorney, and nor do I claim to be, but wills are so important, and wills are so important at many stages of your life. You know, I'm an advocate that everybody should have one. When you're a young newlywed or a young couple, you start accumulating things, and you bring your things to the table, and you know, your spouse brings their things to the table. We all know what should happen if one bad day happens and one of the spouses die. But what happens if people die simultaneously? And that happens more than not. So a will just diffuses lots and lots of what to do with. Okay, so it gives direction and a roadmap. Jumping on that, it should be checked out at different times in your life, and you need to revisit that when you have children, when your children go to college. About the time they go to college is about the time most people have wealth, and of course they're losing a lot of it sending them to college. But at that point in time, you need to revisit and really sit down and make that long-term plan. And what people don't do is what we just said, but then conversely people will say, oh, I have a will and it's okay. No. It's not okay. A will is good to take care of all the stuff that's mine, mine, mine. But outside of that, all the will does is provide direction on how to allocate that stuff. But it doesn't protect it. It doesn't keep it from probate. It doesn't keep it from Medicaid as an asset. All it does is share what you have and how it's allocated.
So sometimes people can end up losing things based on what they owe in terms of taxes or just whoever may scoop in to do this. So even having a financial power of attorney and a healthcare power of attorney, aren't they part of the equation?
Yeah, they're often referred to as durable power of attorney. You can have your medical advance directives, and sometimes those are called a living will, but I like to say advance directives because often people really interchange the two and confuse the word a living trust and a living will.
So explain that a little bit.
And I was going there. I'm glad you're nudging me. I'm going to stick on that living will for a minute. That living will, we talked a little bit ago about Terry Schiavo and all of that. Those are advance directives. Those are all of your heroic measures. Those are the medical advocacies. And that's when you can have a power of attorney or a durable power of attorney for the medical decisions. If you are incapable of making that, someone can make some of those on your behalf and or trigger your directives. All right? Okay. So let's move over to that living trust. The living trust is a big deal. You have a will. Remember how we just talked about that will? So the will defines all that stuff, okay? If a living trust is done properly, that living trust owns all of that stuff that's going to be allocated to someone. So essentially, you or you and your wife really don't own a whole lot of assets. Your living trust owns your wealth, you manage your wealth, or you're the trust or trustee. And if something happens to both of you, you've got people in line or successors, and they make the decisions on all of that stuff that you own and manage that. So when it's time for that will to be read, there's stuff to allocate.
You know, this is sensible advice even while you're living. Not just, you know, planning for the end of life. And that's why it's really important that we take a good look at what we're doing and the decisions that we make. Some of the things that I'm concerned about also in terms of not just the trusts and the assets of things that we have, but you know, there's an emotional factor here that people all face. You know, if you're a surviving spouse, or just the, you were talking about before, the crisis, the sense that can I make all these decisions with a sound mind now, and who can I trust to help me make those decisions? So thinking ahead with your family and people who are close to you, that they know what you want, as you reiterated earlier, is really an important step that everybody needs to do, not just at one point in your life, but as you were saying, it's a thing you come back to. So it's a living process. You keep making sure it's where you want to take it.
Correct. Correct. And so often we just miss the mark. And you'd be amazed. Many educated people who know better, and then there are the people who don't know what they don't know. So, you know, it's not a good or a bad thing, and you shouldn't be embarrassed or ashamed. You just need to handle it. It is what it is, and just handle it. And the more intimidated you become by it, you know, then it gets complicated. So the key is keep it simple, keep your money, and make it happen.
And I worry about people either feeling or being vulnerable to people trying to take advantage of them at that time of crisis, in terms of put your money here, put your money there. You know, so having a sense of knowing what you've got makes a big difference in terms of having to uncover, go through drawers and figure out where things are hidden.
You'll still have that. I promise you.
But there's another factor I think that we should be honest about as well, and that's we're a very impulsive society.
Yes.
And so, you know, if we're single or we've, you know, been self-employed, we don't think of anybody but ourselves, but we don't think about what's going to happen when we're not able to take care of ourselves. So it could be something that you just have to face alone, that you're not prepared for. What do I do if I'm not able to be a carpenter or do the work that I've done as a profession because of some physical limitations? How are some of the ways you try to guide people in your book to understand how to reach those points of crisis?
Now that's a tricky question. I think where I would like to take that is, many times we all have a trade, and you know, we're in the death care trade, a profession I should say. And what happens if you can't do that profession? Well, there's a lot of things out there on the government side, but I'm not here to talk about that. Most people will have disability insurance, or if not, they should, and I would recommend they have both short and long-term disability insurance. I don't really discuss that in the book, but it just touches that people have, you know, they should have that as a part of their portfolio. But really the place that I want to take this is, what if you become disabled from your profession, and it didn't happen on your profession, and you're going to need care for the rest of your life? There's a thing out there, an animal, I would like to say Aflac, just because I think of the duck all the time. It's a great commercial. But there's a thing called long-term care. And long-term care is a strange animal, and it's a wonderful animal at the same time. Long-term care could be one, if not several books. But the key is, you need to understand it. You need to know just some basics about long-term care. And when I say basics, as I look out into our audience, is if you don't want to be taken advantage of, what you need to know about long-term care is that the prime time to buy long-term care is between 50 and 60. That's the time in our life when you are most likely able to afford it. And if you haven't purchased it when you were young at a very ridiculously low premium, that's the time where you can get some very affordable coverage plans out there. And then as an adult, we know, we're pretty informed, and we know what we want and how we want to live our lives and what type of care. So we've got some pretty specific ideas. So what you need to do is find a long-term care provider that obviously is within your budget, and you need to shop that, and you need to get different quotes, but you have to check apples to apples and not apples to oranges. Things like deductibles, things like, is it weeks of care? Is it months of care? Is it years of care? Is there a hidden clause somewhere that if you have this pre-existing condition and this pre-existing condition, nothing is covered? You really need to look at it. Is care done in the home, or is care done in some kind of assisted living and or nursing home? You know, years ago they used to have nursing home insurance. They have all of that. But you need to sit down and make out a wish list of your want list, and then break it down to an absolute need list, and then go out and shop, ask those questions, and then see which product is the best for you. But if you are over age 60, you're better off to self-fund. And what I mean by self-fund is set aside some monies for a rainy day. We all understand that. But set it aside in a very safe type of a portfolio to where you can use that for care or use that towards care with some sort of a supplemental policy possibly down the road. But really, over age 60, long-term care insurance, no, not a good investment.
Well, that's really sound advice. Well, stay with us and we'll do more navigating down the elder care journey with Jodi Clock.
Thank you.